Zig coming in on the top. Today on the show, we have Ryan Fletterick. Ryan's a singer-songwriter and a guitarist based out of Cleveland, Ohio. I've known Ryan for quite some time, and it was a real treat to be able to sit down and get into a real deal conversation with him. The one that wasn't like interrupted by the gig or hey, it's your time to go on stage, right? But anyway, Ryan's played in a few groups, trios, and Oregon Space Trail of Doom being two of them. Currently, Ryan is now in a solo project called Songs for an Unknown God. Ryan has a super sick vinyl release coming out on Wax Mage Records. And these records look phenomenal. They're these crazy, psychedelic-looking vinyls. And you can get one of those at a show, or you can get one at waxmagerecords.com. Speaking of shows, Ryan is playing with Songs for an Unknown God at our show June 13th at the Winchester. So, June 13th, I play in a band called Sea Level, letter C dash. We are a high-energy funk punk reggae rock group that takes acoustic 12-string guitars and runs them through Marshall amps. We are having a single release show at the Winchester June 13th. But this is no normal single release show. We recorded this single with Pete Francis of Dispatch and reached out to him to see if he would want to play a show, and wildly enough, he was into it. But what makes this even crazier is Pete was so cool, and he was like, you know, to save a little money, how about you guys be my backing band? So not only did we get to record with the hero and then have an opportunity to open for him, we are also going to be his backing band. So June 13th at the Winchester, it's going to be a crazy night. It's Pete Francis from Dispatch, Sea Level, and we will be backing Pete. Also, we have Brahctopus and Songs for an Unknown God. So, for all my Songs of an Unknown God fans, if you want to retrieve one of these sick psychedelic Wax Mage records, you can pick one up June 13th at our show. This was a really deep conversation, and learning about what Ryan's been going through and like how he's handled it and like his views and outlook on everything right now is very, very inspiring. Personally, I like it when the friends are doing good. I like when my friends are succeeding in things they've attempted at, or just continuing the thing they're doing and show no sign of giving in, because eventually that's going to lead to success, right? But I like it when everyone's rooting for each other and looking out positively. You know, I think that's a really important factor to what makes a scene vibrant, right? And I think Ryan definitely makes our scene vibrant. Anywho, if you hear anything you like, if you can like, rate, review, subscribe to the podcast and any of the podcast platforms, it helps me keep talking to cool guests like Ryan. And lastly, if you want to hear some music from Songs from an Unknown God, you can find Ryan's music on any of the streaming platforms, also on Bandcamp. And yeah, so here we go. This is my conversation with Ryan.
And when you ask, you know, it's kind of serendipitous. So
all right. Well, let's get into it, man. All right, Ryan. So to kind of start us off, because our journey crosses right before oh man, because I was thinking about it today, like when we met, and I remember for the first time hearing you play solo or doing a kind of a acoustic set where you were fronting it at that coffee shop on Detroit across from Fry.
The Root Cafe?
Not the Root. This was closer to the 5 o'clock lounge. And and you guys all came out, and I think it was kind of the origin of stuff that was cooking with Doom, Oregon Space Trail.
Yeah.
Cuz you all came out in almost
black turtlenecks.
Yes, it was all similar suited. And and it was the coffee place had coffee bean bags everywhere with skits, those wooden skits everywhere.
Absolutely.
Do you remember the name of that spot?
I don't honestly.
Either.
Unfortunately, it didn't last too long. But yeah, I'm completely drawing a blank. I know that was 2017.
Yeah.
And you are correct. That was the early origins of Oregon Space Trail Doom. And man, that was just kind of a one-off isolated event, incident, really. I don't even know. It's funny because, yeah, we did transform into Oregon Space Trail of Doom, but, you know, obviously we adopted a new sound, going into what people would know as traditional doom. Um, but yeah, I totally remember. I feel like, what they had like burlap sacks of
Yeah.
like,
Of,
like
of beans, like what would be the roasted beans, you know?
absolutely, yeah. Yeah, man, I can't believe I forgot you were there. I don't think okay, so we crossed paths though originally at that North Olmsted Jam Night, across from Nuevo Acapulco.
Was that Doc and Louis?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
It's not existing anymore, is it?
No, the building's
Yeah.
there, but
Yeah.
the mic night and the bar isn't. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Wow. Okay. All right. That makes
You,
sense.
you honestly, I remember I met you, and at that time, I was like a developing and aspiring like lead guitarist, and I was into Jimi Hendrix and the Stevie Ray Vaughan and thing, and all that cool stuff,
Right.
um, yeah, I was pretty green at that time. Like I didn't really know anybody in the scene, and I was trying to just meet people. And you really welcomed me, very kindly, that night, and you made me feel totally welcome. And I definitely met a few others that night. But I ended up having a good time. I remember one song in particular I jammed on, "Feeling All Right."
Yep.
And
Yep. That checks out for that venue.
yeah,
Yep. Yep.
the
Yep. Yep.
C7 F chord,
Yeah.
it was like that's like, and I had some little solos, but again, because I didn't have the confidence I do now, in my playing. I definitely stuttered a bit, and but it was okay. Nobody was really paying attention, and it didn't really matter that much. Everybody was just having a good time. So I will never forget that. And then over the ensuing months, I swear, like I would mention your name, and you're kind of well known amongst like people in Cleveland, for all the community outreach stuff you do, music therapy, if you're still doing that.
Yep.
And
Yep. That's what I was
um,
racing home from.
yeah, yeah, nobody ever has anything bad to say about you, and I don't either.
Oh, thanks, man.
Obviously stemming from everything checks out. It's like, man, this guy's so consistent with his behavior. Like he's perfect.
I wouldn't go
So
that far, but I'm
well,
glad
no,
there's no too harsh reviews yet.
yeah,
Wow,
yeah,
man. No,
but
that means a lot. Thank you.
yeah, of course. But like again, like it meant a lot that you were inviting to me at that open mic, and I don't know if you ran it or if you were just like, like I guess a participant and knew the people that ran it. I really didn't know the scope of that open mic, but it seems like you were familiar with everybody there that night, and had that agency to kind of, direct.
So I'm trying to think. I might have filled in one or two, but I don't think I ever like ran that night. But I did so my like well one thing kind of just to touch on the whole Mike night spiel. Like I got my start playing at Mike nights, and like I think they're super important. I think
They are.
that's where you go to mess up and be supported and share ideas and try new things, and like
Yep.
it's gonna sound cheesy, but it's like a sacred space for artists in a world where everything is put up for judgment via reaction or like accounts or what, I mean, where we're all kind of put on blast to be like kind of like analyzed, and like the youth are very very ironic with the things they do enjoy, so it's almost like backhanded for even when it's not, regardless. But like
Absolutely.
it's a
Absolutely.
special space in which like if you cater to the environment to make it so people try things and feel welcome to try things, I think it furthers and enriches the community in ways that like will only benefit later, right? And partially that's
100%.
because like I fell into an environment where I was going to a mic night, and that's where I met Cody, and like my guitar teacher at the time, his name was George. He was running it, and it was a very supportive environment. So in
Yeah,
my mind, that's the way you do this, And
absolutely.
I'm glad you felt that way. That makes me feel really good knowing that.
Oh
Um,
yeah, yeah, yeah. I've always considered it to be like an ecosystem for musical assembly, and it's like, oh, you go there to meet people, you go there to mess up, like you mentioned, and you go there to almost feel like vulnerable, and you hope that like nobody's gonna, and nobody does, but it's like it's still it was always a prevailing insecurity of mine, where it's like, oh man, like I want to look good, feel good, play good. But, like part of the developmental process is experiencing all those trials and tribulations, which ultimately mold you into the players that we've become today.
100%.
Um,
Yeah.
and so, yeah, I couldn't agree any more with you. About all that. One open mic that I went to recently was at Coda, hosted by Mikey Silas, and I was just there as a citizen. I wasn't even playing, but the diversity of acts, like it just kind of coalescing and coexisting in that moment, it was a really nice sight, and not to mention it was entertaining. Like there was some really cool music being played, and I just got to sit back and relax. So shout out to their open mic. Mikey Silas is at Coda every Wednesday.
Yeah, yeah.
um but aside from that, what are some other cool open mics around nowadays?
Well, I guess that nowadays, I mean, let's see. There's a there. Well, we you got the gosh, what's I'm trying to think. What's the one that, well, Meg's always got one going on. She's got one at HQ, Meg Stefka, and I think it's at
Okay.
HQ in Old Brooklyn, and that's like Mondays or every other Monday
Okay.
or something. And then Meg does one at the Spotlight, like every once a month on a Thursday, I think.
Was Meg at Kelly's in Lakewood?
Yes, yes, she was
Okay.
there for
Yeah.
like a staple a real long time, and that's a very supportive environment of like. But that one was always late. That one always went late. I
Yeah.
loved it,
Yep.
but I'm like, oh man, I gotta wake up at 5. I don't know if I can go
I know.
sign up at
Yeah.
10. I feel bad. I missed a lot of good
Yeah.
nights because of it.
Right.
Um,
Absolutely.
Sacred
Absolutely.
Waters Kava Bar in
Oh, I
Lakewood
love
has a
that
yeah
place.
that they
Yeah.
got a really good one on Thursday. I host it every last Thursday, but they do it all every Thursday, and that place is really like receptive to cool. You get a lot of cool stuff there. Um,
Absolutely.
and then I know there's another one somewhere on Wednesday, and then I host one on Wednesday in Berea at the Front Street Social, and that's also developed a really nice supportive group of people that are out there trying new things.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
feel like there's one on Monday, but I can't think of it. Like, because usually you get one every day of the week except for Fridays and Saturdays. And then, well, Negative
Right.
Space has one on every last Saturday of the month, and Sean hosts that, and that's always good.
Okay. Cool. Cool. I'll have to
Um,
check that one out. I've been meaning to go to Negative.
oh, it's
And
wild.
I know, and it's like everybody's, and I'm just like sleeping over here, living under a rock.
Well, it's hard, man. It's hard when you like, because you're working. Are you doing a T-shirt printing gig or a vinyl pressing gig? Like, 'cause I was trying to, I can't tell, or both.
Yeah, well, it's cool. Okay, so I actually, with the vinyl pressing, no, I'm just promoting my record. I have my debut album, 100 Miles, came out last year around June. Um, and unfortunately, I had gotten hit by a car,
Holy
like
shit!
riding my bicycle, and I
Yeah.
broke my wrist,
Oh,
like pretty badly.
yeah.
And I was out playing for like 4 to 5 months. So I really didn't get to promote my album like in play, because I simply couldn't.
Right.
But it kind of worked out in my favor because during that time I was able to, kind of submit the album to Wax Mage Records here in Cleveland. Not like I always like to almost think of it as like a subsidiary of like Gotta Groove, but it's not. They're just essentially working, at Gotta Groove and using their equipment to, press their own records and
Got
whatnot.
it.
But anyway,
Okay.
shout
Okay.
out to them. They put on a lot of, local musicians and whatever. It's really cool. So flash forward to today, finally we're getting that record out, 100 Miles, on vinyl, and yeah, that'll be out this Friday actually.
All right.
Um, It's extremely special to me. And I've been, promoting it incessantly right now. Almost every day I promote, an exclusive variant from Wax Mage, in conjunction with Liz Finley, who works at Wax Mage, who's been just on the ball with like reels and formulating posts. I honestly give all the credit, the posting, to her, but I have made a few videos to promote it as well. And we've been doing good at, little tag team effort for strategy and whatnot. But um, yeah, so that'll come out this Friday. And in my waking life, my civilian life, yeah, I own a screen print shop called Cleveland Print Co. And we've been around for quite some time. We work with a lot of cool musicians. My favorite record label, or DIY record label rather, Delayed Gratification Records, and they deal like more in the hardcore scene and whatnot. Um, but Vlade, who is my liaison for DGR, has just been so amazing to work with, and he's really been putting in a lot of work with us, for the past couple of years, and just shout out to them. Absolutely love them, like Slug, like local hardcore Cleveland bands. And then, we do a lot of cool stuff with local Cleveland artists and musicians as well. Obviously it just kind of is in that same ballpark, but it's cool. I mean, it's not like the most glamorous thing. It's kind of like manual labor, draped in like color. But it does keep me affiliated with, the scene and whatnot. And combining that with my musical life, it's really nice to have a bundle package that keeps you into art.
Yeah.
Um,
And also,
so
it's kind of like I don't have I've printed a lot of shirts for us on our own, like DIY style, like
yeah,
making a little screen and doing that, and like when you get into the rhythm of it, it's kind of like really relaxing, But I mean,
yeah,
I'm sure
yeah.
you could be like, dude, I do this every day, like
Oh my
totally
gosh,
not
Dave.
relaxed. This guy wants like 5 colors, like,
Dude, it's like, yeah, this guy wants 5 colors and he wants 1,000 of them.
yeah,
And it's like,
that's when
it's
it's not
just,
relaxing.
it becomes right. It's like, it becomes very redundant. It's fulfillment work, there is a finesse to it. Obviously, like, you want to make the print look nice. And, so that's cool. Fortunately, with everything that's going on in the world and in America and whatnot, we haven't really experienced like any hikes and tariffs and whatnot. So that's pretty cool. And we've gotten a lot of cool new clients this year. That's really nice. And yeah, the print shop was really started by my friend Garth Phillips, who like about 4 months later hired me, and it's kind of ran by us both. And then flash forward 5 6 years, we were finally able to hire another person named Logan Shepard, who had moved here recently from Seattle, Washington. And he's just like a print guru, kind of like a print intellectual. He knows so much about the industry and the materials, the inks, and the methodology behind it. So we are at a good place in terms of like knowledge on how to make a good print. Between the three of us, we always have an answer. And I just love working with them. We're all like really good friends. So, in that regard, my life is good, because we're all, business owners, and, we're in like kind of a niche field. It's not like we're making like, lawyer salaries, but again, maybe someday.
But that's so it's really cool to kind of like a way, like as far as like kind of finding your own way and sticking into, like how you said, still kind of being in the scene when you're not like playing. That's a really like incredible spot, especially since you guys started it up on your own. That's
Yeah.
that's so sick.
Thank you, Dave. It's some days I'm just like, damn, they're like, wow, how did I get here? And and yeah, it's definitely like that. Obviously, um, as people, or at least maybe it's just me. Sometimes, I think like, like what would it have been like if I didn't play music and didn't do all these things? But but man, the reality, I couldn't imagine like that life, and to just like, it's like my goal is to just make money, and like that's my personality. Like I have all like nice this, that, but like, like I don't know. I don't want to, I guess assume too many things because whatever. But yeah, I'm thankful for my life, and I'm thankful that I get to spend it with artists and musicians and honestly really cool people. Like nobody's really ever like bummed about receiving t-shirts. So like anytime somebody comes to pick stuff up, they're generally in a good mood, which is contagious. So that
Yeah.
makes me happy.
Well, I think what you said is super important to highlight because, like, I feel like there's a lot of people we know in our lives that are trying to figure out what they want to do. You know what I mean? And like,
Absolutely. Yeah.
how lucky to like kind of stumble into a thing where you're like, I don't know if this is necessarily 100% what young me was like, I want to do, but damn, is this fun? You know what I mean? Like,
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the tyranny of societal's expectations tells you that, you need to make all this money
right.
and you need to do this and you need to like, but the older I get, the more I realize what a farce that is.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like I can just make what I need to. I don't need to be profitable every month. I don't need to, as long as there's sustainability and morale, passion, and happiness, those things I think are the key to any successful business.
Or just any successful relationship or endeavor. You know what I mean? Like,
Quite literally. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, I 100%
100%.
agree. Yeah, it's so much like I don't know. I do a lot with a negative space. I've been on the board there for like I don't know, 10 years or something crazy. And like talking with Gotti and having kind of conversations like this where it's like just like, man, how cool is it that we're trying to figure out what to do. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
we're trying to figure out how to make this work better for something. Like, but we have this space and this time, and what else would how boring would it be, or how like, and I don't. It's not to put anything else down because I feel like everyone else is on their own like adventure to figure out where they need to go. You know,
100%.
and
Yeah.
like, and everyone hopefully gets there, and hopefully isn't afraid to try to find it, and like,
Yeah, absolutely.
but to kind of take it back, okay. So before you came to the Mike Night, where you started, did you like? So you're into Hendrix and you're into Steve Ray Vaughan. I totally understand and like feel those inspirations because that's where I was.
Yeah.
When you started to play out, did you like have ambitions as a songwriter? Were you just trying to get a band going? Like when I met you, was that about when you were attempting to do stuff like this?
Pretty much. Yeah.
Okay.
I think at that point I was still acclimating or getting used to like playing in front of people even. I kind of started playing the guitar like later on, much later than I had hoped, around like when I was like 19.
Okay.
So to fill like a few voids in my life, I just practiced like incessantly, and I really immersed myself into music, for like 3 years, dude. I was like practicing like 6 to 10 hours a day, and I was just so obsessed with it. I was like,
What
I
did that
wasn't
what did that look like when you're because those are long, is that like jamming? Is it like lessons? Is it like tearing apart other solos? Or,
at that time. It was like honestly like scale patterns, like working with metronomes on like rhythmic techniques, like learning songs out the wazoo, like practicing with as many different types of people, musically, that is like that I could. Um and just like gear shopping, tone, like figuring out my tone, doing all sorts of things. My dad kind of like at this time, I moved out of my dad's house when I was like 24, kind of late, but he was real supportive of me. Um, but in his eyes, I'd say he probably was like, man, what is this deadbeat doing? Playing all this guitar. Like, I did have a job and I did work and I did go to school at the time because I did go to I graduated like via the Tri-C Jazz program.
okay, nice.
But it was just like, I guess, he was really cool about me just like playing music, and I'd like wake up early, maybe practice like an hour or two, and then go to school. I worked at a restaurant and I would work Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And with those tips, I was able to just like kind of survive. So the weekdays I had off or had school, and I would just binge. Um, on the weekends, I would kind of do the same thing in reverse. I would just practice in the morning and then work at night. Um, but yeah, how I managed that, I had no dating life. I kind of like parted my way with like friends. I met a lot of new people whose interests aligned with, mine. And yeah, I guess like, scale patterns, a lot of scale patterns, like ear training, trying to figure out intervals. There were a lot of apps like around that time that would like play you an interval, whether it was like a major sixth or a minor third. Be like, guess the interval, like
Yeah.
yada
Oh
yada.
my God.
You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
I've done those too. Which
Yeah.
campus at Tri-C did you go to?
I was at the Metro.
Okay.
I was with like Steve Enos
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
like Ernie Krivda. Dan Wilson was my guitar teacher, and then yeah,
That's
yeah,
awesome. Yeah, I remember taking those courses and being like using those apps where it's like bam bam, and you're like the second, and you're like crap, and listening to the songs where it's like, hey dude, okay, that's a third, like trying to like,
yeah.
and you're around all these people that are just like, okay, it's a third, whatever, next, and it's nothing to these guys, and like it's a
I
thing. I think
know,
it's a guitar
I
player
know.
thing, like we come from a different world of not reading sheet music and like kind of the academics are later in life, which are why guitar players
Yeah,
maybe like are obsessed with it later. Like, oh no,
yeah.
tritones everywhere, tritones, and like, yeah, dude, I remember third grade. Like, I don't know.
Quite literally. But I was like just determined because like it seemed like all my peers like this was all easy stuff for them, and I was really like behind, especially with my singing and stuff at the time, learning like the solfege system
Mm-hmm.
and like singing back melodies. Like, a lot of my issues were at the time, like, were confidence issues. So like I was just constantly like scared, insecure, etc. Because I was just with all these people and kids who had been playing, since at least like high school or even before that, who just had like maybe 5 years, 5, 6 years on me. But um, I did want to say there was one gentleman who like really took me under his wing, and his name was Dallas Coffey, and he's like an upright bass player. He's a real character. He's such a cool guy.
With a name like
And
Dallas Coffee, like he
yeah, yeah.
sounds like one. That's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, he's awesome, and he was probably my first guitar teacher. Um, I did take lessons from Michael Bay and then Dan Wilson
Nice.
as well. Oh
Okay,
yeah.
cool.
But he taught me like it was like this book called like The Stage and Chord Man or something. It was like written by like I think like a Cleveland guy back in the day, but it was just like chord voicings for the jazz musician. And he was like teaching me, we'd like look at like a real book and like, yo, like you're gonna comp for me while I like do something else. And I was just doing like the Freddie Green kind of Count Basie, like,
Yeah.
like the choo 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 choo, like stuff like that. I wasn't really playing like Joe Pass or anything. Like it was pretty basic chord playing, with the idea of kind of just the feeling. And eventually, like it came down to like I was learning stuff to like the Charleston, like the cha cha, like cha cha, like that kind of stuff, like rhythm comping and whatnot. And then eventually I don't know, I really don't play any of that stuff anymore, unfortunately. um but some of my peers, like, Brent Hamker, who was also part of like he was above my graduating class for Tri-C, but he was like the player. He was so good, and he still is. He's still like a good friend of mine, and still a bad MFer, and just he's just a really cool dude. I don't know if you know him.
I don't think I've met him. Maybe like if I've seen him, like it'd jog my memory at the moment, but I'm kind of blanking. But
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's interesting because like at that time, like also it's like you get those cats in there like who are really good at jazz standard stuff and like because what I totally relate to your whole journey so far academically,
Yeah.
like just trying to catch up. Like I would wake up every morning like at 4 or 5, some days 3 to get down to Cleveland because I went to Tri C West and then I went to Cleveland State. Just but to get there
Yeah.
and practice and try to like get all the things in, you know what I mean, and just like try to wrap my head around all these like new things, you know, and it's fun and exciting and like I keep finding myself kind of revisiting and being like, oh man, I gotta get caught up. You know what I mean? Like,
Absolutely.
um,
That's where I'm at right now, Dave. I've been so bad with my practices. Like currently as Songs for an Unknown God, obviously I spend a lot of time just playing solo music, and you know, there's merit to that. It's simple, easygoing, don't overthink it type stuff, but I really don't have the agency or the outlet to kind of jam like on the lead guitar like I used to. I mean,
yeah,
the older we get, the harder it becomes to kind of orchestrate jams and whatnot. And I could go to open mics and I could try and do that, but um, I don't know, man. I also play bass in a band called Radderall,
okay, I
and
remember that band. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
they're sweet. I just
yeah.
joined them this year. I love them. They're like my good friends. They're all real smart dudes, and just they all have good heads on their shoulders, and I couldn't appreciate that more about them. It's a very safe and stable band, I feel. Um and I love that. And then I also play in another band where I do lead guitar. It's called John's Little Sister.
Oh yeah, I've heard of them too. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
No,
yeah.
John's Little Sister's awesome. Those are two rad bands. Like at
Thank
the end,
you.
yeah.
I'm very fortunate. Yeah, John's Little Sister is fronted by Jess Sycon, and she's been like an OG in the scene, Cleveland scene,
Yeah.
for a while. She writes amazing songs, stemming to like kind of like country, indie, etc. She's not really limited by anything. But I've been in that band for like maybe 2 or 3 years now,
Okay.
and right now uh, we haven't really played since last December, although we do have a show coming up, I think June 6th or 7th, opening up for a guy named M. Ross Perkins.
That's a sick name.
Uh,
I don't. I'm not familiar with them, Ross. But
he's sweet. He's
yeah.
from Dayton, and he just released a new album, and he's going to be touring it. But yeah, he's really cool. But yeah, that's what I guess what I'm doing. Sorry to get off track.
Oh no, it's fine, dude. That's amazing. Like, but those are like, it's like kind of like when I think about my Tri C jazz professor, like he was a great musician and a good teacher. And like I remember bringing in like a C level demo and being like, "Oh, I recorded this," and you know, what I mean, like just how you're saying, like the confidence and vocals and stuff. I've always been like, it's just one of those things. You're always like, "Oh, I'm not good enough. I gotta keep working
Yeah,
on that." You know what I mean?
yeah,
It,
imposter syndrome. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah. And like, so I remember sharing with him the demo and like him listening to some of that. He's like, "Oh, that's you singing. Oh, that's good." You know what I mean? Like, and just it's a little validation where you're like, okay, the guy that's heard everything totally didn't say it sucked. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like I did something here. But like, also,
absolutely.
it also brought up this kind of strange moment when he was like, "Yeah, you know, I never wrote any of my stuff down or recorded any of it." And like, and he's like, I'm like, "Well, why don't you do it now, man?" He's like, "Yeah, what's the point?" I'm like, "Oh shit, this got dark."
Oh,
You know what I'm saying? Like, so
yeah,
there's also
yeah.
like that, even though like some of the songwriting aspects may be like kind of simple playing, it's like it's rewarding and way more challenging on a lot of other levels, you know?
Dude, I couldn't agree with you anymore. I think songwriting is like, obviously musicians are musicians, and songwriters are kind of, or like compositional, like, writers, whatever, etc. I think that it does take, yeah, it's just a little different, like I know so many great lead players and musicians who like unfortunately don't have the knack to write a song, or just like even figure it out. And then, on the contrary, like I know people who are amazing songwriters who can't like learn covers or like other stuff.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like this duality. But I don't know, I'd imagine that you're probably the same way with Sea Level. that like I would always consider myself a songwriter first. Would you agree with yourself?
I would say like that, especially with where we're at. Like yes, that's where
Yeah,
like any guitar thing is to build a song off of it. You know what I mean? Or it's a foundation of a thing, or it's a
100%.
yeah, and like but so okay, to kind of trace from the guy who's trying to get up and play in front of people to writing songs. Did that kind of like when you met some cats and started jamming, were you like writing tunes that kind of led to like Space Trail stuff? Or at that point, were you just kind of making music as a group? You know what I'm saying? Like, or were you kind of
Yeah.
like orchestrating like what would the group would play, kind of leading into that? Because like I think back to that one performance in the coffee shop, and it was a much different vibe.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
and
yeah.
to me, like, if so, to kind of build up there, like, did you have some songs written, or was this
Yes.
a okay? So, kind of walk
Yes.
me to that.
Well, so I started a band called Trios, Trios, with my friend Joe Kern. And originally, this was probably like 2020, or I'm sorry, 2014, excuse me. Um, and we were like, just like, I don't know, like a bazaar of sounds. It was just guitar and drums. And we would write like kind of pseudo punk, like faster rock songs.
Okay.
Um, and like we were just having fun. Like we wrote a song called like Travel and Space Shark and like and just like stuff like that. We
Yeah.
were just being goofy. And that kind of like helped me like write more serious tunes like later on, because I think at that time I was trying to learn to write and somebody told me to just like, just be goofy at first, like and then figure out like your rhythm for how you write because everybody writes differently. Some might have a melody, some might have a riff, that starts as the foundation, kind of like what you mentioned. Um, and I don't know, I was always like making chord changes first. Like that was kind of like a weird thing, and then finding a melody over top. Or if I had like a concept, like say the space shark,
Right.
like that actually it's crazy. That idea, I had gotten my wisdom tooth taken out, and I smoked cigarettes at that time,
Yeah.
and I had like nicotine patches on me to like curtail the cigarette cravings because you can't smoke when you get your wisdom teeth removed. And I had just like a dream of like a traveling space shark. And probably the only time a song had come to me like such a vivid dream, I was like so lucid and apparent. And I think I woke up in the middle of the night and I wrote like traveling space shark down and then like, like whatever, went back to sleep. But anywho, so that was just a side note. So yeah, I started that band with my buddy Joe Kern, and we eventually grew to like a 5-piece band. Um, and like I don't know, like that band didn't really work out, unfortunately. But also around that time, I just had like this insurgence of like creativity, and like it was like a tsunami had hit me, and I was writing every day and like working on tunes, like even if I didn't finish a song, like it's like, oh, well, I got another one like from this song, whatever, I'll just continue on. um but during that tenure with trios, it really gave me the confidence to like be a performing musician, like performing my own songs and songs that we had crafted as a group, collaborating on and whatnot. But yeah, like, unfortunately it just didn't work out with that band. So uh I had always wanted to kind of play with this guy named Tony Kazel. He was a drummer and he was a really, really good drummer at that time.
Yeah.
And I somehow got to convincing him to do this like solo gig, which is the gig that you kind of saw us at that coffee shop. And with my other buddy Clyde, who was in trios as well. Um, and we were playing some of the trios songs that I had written, like, but in, like acoustic format, as well as some covers and as well as some early Doom songs that I had written. But after that gig, my buddy Nolan Cavano like kind of came into the mix, and he's a great guitarist in the local Cleveland scene too. And he was kind of like, dude, like, let's just do something. Like, like, how can we convince like Tony, who was in like 80 bands at the time, a very desired musician,
Yeah.
to like want to be in our band? And the answer was simple, just like write more songs and every rehearsal kind of like have something new to do to kind of keep the interest going. Book shows, like book them immediately so we can secure our dates and not have to work around any other people's dates, because at that time he was probably in 79 bands instead of 80. um and so whatever, it just kind of worked out. And we had so much fun, like, I think through our efforts, like, we inspired other people to like kind of like, yo, do you need like another guitar, or do you need like bass, or do you need this? And they're like, yeah, dude, like, actually we do you want to join the band? Cool, okay. Like, enter our buddy Mario, and then our buddy Nick Ionasco. And thus, like, was kind of how Oregon Space Trail was born. Sadly, Mario would end up moving back to Columbus eventually, and so Doom just became a four-piece band: me, Nolan Cavano, Nick Ionasco, and Tony Kazel. And we never really thought it would catch on as well as it did in Cleveland. um, but we were thankful for that journey, and obviously, like, I guess, like, booked a lot of gigs, and people would come out, and it was a really fun time in my life.
Now you guys, yeah, Doom was killing it. I remember playing a show in Detroit and people coming up and being like, "Have you heard of this band, Oregon Space Trail of Doom?" I was like, "What? How do you know about that band?" You know what I mean? Like,
Dude, well, funny story, like, we went up there, my buddy Garth and I, my partner at the print shop,
yeah,
we went up to Detroit, and we just like, we posted everywhere, like in Hamtramck and like, I don't know, Greek Village and whatever.
yeah.
These little leaflets that said, listen to Oregon Space Trail Doom, with like a yin yang and like a QR code.
That's amazing because it
Yeah,
worked.
dude, it did. And like, we got a lot of new followers and a lot of people just like kind of taking pictures with them. Like, what the heck is this? You know? And I don't know if like you could still like, part of me, like, admittedly, like, when you're putting up that many flyers, like, you're littering, and like, you always,
Yeah.
like, I'm like, I try and keep that in mind. I don't think I'd do that again, honestly. And I don't know if you can even do that. Like, we went down there with like staple guns and whatnot, but when we got there, some of the posts were like, I don't know, like aluminum light posts instead of like the wooden.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we had to like buy a tape gun and just like really tape these on, like, yeah, 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 yeah. So, I wouldn't ever suggest people doing that again, because I'm sure it was kind of hard for the city of Detroit to like get all that stuff. And thankfully none of us got in trouble.
Yeah,
But I mean, people do far worse things in terms of vandalism. But
for sure.
but but still, water is wet, and I would take accountability for that one. But it certainly like helped, and maybe not, like, the some of the Detroit folks that you spoke to, maybe that's how they learned about us. But we also had a really good friend named Cindy Bunden, who was like constantly taking photos of us, like real professional photos, from like, say, 2018 to probably 2022. And she was spreading, like, the Oregon Space Trail of Doom like message out there. And just like,
I
she was
wonder.
so,
Actually,
yeah,
that might have been who I talked to. Like that might I might have met her. That could have been
she's
it.
so awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't remember now. Like I wrote it down. Maybe I used to keep a little tour journal. Let me see. But anyway, but
so
okay.
awesome, dude.
I would do that. I would write down who I met and what we talked about.
I
like,
love that. I love
like
that, man.
so. I was like, I will know if I come back. Oh, Tom. Yes. How's your dog? Like,
Yeah, and it's so sincere, like, and again, back to like why, I think that, for reasons like that and more, I think that that's why people just simply love you, because you care, like, about those things. And people realize it, like, when they're asked upon, it's like, whoa, you remember that? Like, oh, sweet, man, you cool. And like, you never know what kind of day somebody's having, like that
It
could
is
really
true.
make
That's
people
true.
happy.
It's wild what people recall and bring up. I'm sure you've experienced this. Like one of the most recent, I had a really interesting reaction interaction lately with a friend who had a first show, and he came up. He's like, "I remember that thing you told me." I'm like, "Oh God, what did I say?" And he's like, "You said don't play with a pick." I'm like, "I did." Maybe I just didn't have one. I don't know if I would ever give that advice, but he's like, it meant a lot to me in that moment. So I was like, all right, cool, man. And it felt good, to know that
Yeah,
because I
yeah,
wasn't sure where that was gonna go. But
dude, I agree with that sentiment. I with songs for an unknown god, my acoustic stuff,
yeah,
I do not play with a pick.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, only fingers.
Was it okay? So before, because I got questions on that, but before leading into that, okay, so it kind of grew to this thing, and one thing I find interesting leading up to like so to kind of keep like this drummer we're really digging playing within the band, that kind of keep Tony involved. We're gonna keep doing and writing new stuff, so it's always exciting, right?
Yeah.
So that kind of like mentality, was that like a spoken thing? Did you guys say that, or is it just what you did?
Um, it was it was a strategy for sure. And it was totally known. You know, uh with Oregon Space Trail of Doom, like all the strategy behind the art, the writing, um, what you saw on the internet, and like that idea that I just told you with Detroit and whatnot, like like it was really me, like in Nolan. We I feel like we knew exactly what we wanted, and we knew exactly what, like, how to kind of like get it in like little quirky thing, like ways of like going about, like, oh, how, like, it's weird, like, it's like social psychology meets, like, I don't know, like,
Art.
I guess, like, yeah. And you don't want to sound like it's not like this weird control thing or anything like that. It's just like, how do you keep a band enthused, you
Right.
know?
Yeah.
And happy and entertained and like not stagnant. um I think those are the methods. And also like just friendship, like pure camaraderie, like listening to each other, hanging out, listening to people's like emotional problems or personal problems, whatever, like being there for people, I think strengthens that bond with musicians and whatnot. And I think all that stuff is extremely sacred.
Mhm.
Um, but but yeah, no, we definitely knew how, like, it was usually Nolan and I plotting, like, dude, okay, like, yeah, like this is how we're gonna do it. Like, Ryan, like, you got anything cooking right now? Like, yeah, I got a little part of, okay, well, let's like get on that next rehearsal. We'll cover the three new ones that we learned last week, but let's start this new one. And we didn't have like the repertoire we did, or we ended up having at that time. We had like seven songs, so we there was also like a bit of an urgency to keep things fresh. We kind of had to, um think about covers you want to do, or like plans, like gigs, like strategies, like, oh, this one pays this much, but that one pays this much. It's like,
When
oh, we're gonna take that one.
Yeah.
um
But it's like when you
uh
start to pool and you like start to like get a lot of offers, and like you have to start to think like that.
yeah, yeah.
Um
And it's absolutely, it is like that. And also though, like, it's wild, like, amongst like doing all this stuff too, or amidst doing all this stuff, like, you really learn the people, like the venue owners and whatnot, that like really like you as like friends, and not just see you as like this band that's going to make that venue money.
Right.
And like, oh, this venue is like willing to do all this stuff for me, feed me, give me like this, whatever, like, I want to play that venue too. Or like, oh, that's the smaller venue, and they're like offering the most money. It's like, oh, well, you know what, we'll take like $100 less or $200 less, and we're just gonna play your venue because you seem like you kind of need it. Not like to be gaudy or like
Yeah, but
assume like that's a bad thing, but
to
more
help
so
out.
like, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Right. And I would hope that the community would do that for us
Right.
too. Because again, back to open mics being like the ecosystem of musical assembly, like venues are like, I mean, the ecosystem of post musical assembly, it's where the performance of that musical assembly meets and is showcased. So it's awesome, in that regard. I guess just like knowing where to direct your energies.
Yeah, I think like when like what I always found really interesting about you guys too, and like it's like there was like this whole kind of aesthetic to everything, and so kind of hearing what you said. So I guess my next question is, like, when with the approach to everything, did you have like an inspiration in mind or a vision or something that kind of inspired musically and kind of like how you guys also like presented yourself in that sense, like since you kind of knew what you wanted to do and kind of how to get it, was there an inspiration that led to that, or is this just like kind of a thing you guys brainstormed and like this is like all our, you know what I mean? That's
Yeah, I would say that we were heavily influenced by King Gizzard and the
okay.
Lizard Wizard at that
Okay.
time. Um, it may not be exactly what I listen to anymore. They're amazing musicians and
Of
they
course.
they're so freaking good, but I think that the volume of records and music that they put out has like kind of overwhelmed me. I just can't keep up with it all anymore. But at that time, it was like Nonagon Infinity and Microtonal Banana or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, I
12 bar
love.
bruised. I think it was one of them.
Yeah, that was a great record. That's like even yeah, so cool. And then like oh man, like Sketches of Brunswick East and like that was a little later on, like maybe I don't know, 2017, I can't recall. But we were heavily influenced by them and like how cool, calm, and collective like they presented themselves to be. Um, and yet, like, their music was like it was definitely like on the spectrum of a lot of different genres. It was hard to kind of define. And obviously, like the name Oregon Space Trail of Doom probably subconsciously had some influence, in its creation or origins by the King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard thing.
Yeah.
Um,
Symbolically, I think we were adding it up there. Like,
exactly right,
yeah.
right, right. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
I see
yeah.
that now.
But and side note, a lot of people were actually like kind of confused and like angry that we weren't from Oregon. Like, we'd go elsewhere like
Yeah.
Colorado and stuff and be like, wait, but you guys aren't from Oregon? It's like, no, like it's a play on the video, like the
The
game.
game. You remember that?
And then like, oh, it's like, how would you have died? Huh? Would it be like dysentery or something? Yeah. But anywho, um, yeah, it was just a fun time, in terms of styles. Like at one point we were wearing like gold chains, like they weren't real gold chains,
Yeah.
but it was just kind of like, we really between the four of us had such a unique bond at that time. And like instead of like, if we had a good payout, we might buy the band like matching shoes or like those. We at one point demoed Nolan's brother's pool to like in his backyard. It was like a big pool that he was trying to get. It was an above ground pool, and we demoed it and excavated the like all the remnants. And his brother paid us like 2 grand, and we like put it all down on like a van and stuff, and then went to the mall and bought like gold chains.
Yeah.
um, at one point we bought like like the Lithuanian like basketball team like used like kind of Grateful Dead inspired merch one year for their like basketball shirts. And when Liquid Blue released like retro like inspired shirts from the Lithuanian basketball team, we all bought matching shirts for each other. We would wear them. And it was like, we were like kind of like I don't know how to like kitschy and like kind of like just like a bit quirky.
But that's awesome. It's
Yeah.
it's you guys like
Yeah, yeah. I mean, but there was definitely like unfortunately like there was a prevailing ego, at the time that, I wish that in some cases we could have checked. But that's just I guess like, it's like you're like a big fish in a very small pond. it's easy to fall into that kind of that ego. And it's unfortunate, that with some of us it happened. But it's okay, like looking back, moving forward, obviously we all kind of have realized that, about, there was a lot of great things and then there were some bad things, um it was a big learning experience, I'd say, for all of us. And I would do it over and over again, no doubt. I have no regrets in my life. And we actually got together last week,
Yeah.
and we like had like a dinner and whatnot. And I don't know if we'll ever get back, hopefully maybe someday, but we're all still working individually in our own little projects, and just kind of, enjoying being 30-year-old musicians.
It's a it's
So
it's an interesting, definitely time to be,
absolutely.
but like, and like, I don't know, part of that is going through all that and having that type of success and like that kind of those checks, and like you only grow from that, you know what I mean, and you can't grow without running into those same kind of walls or pitfalls, and like, but I
Absolutely.
think it's incredible, like everyone, it sounds like, looking back on it, it's kind of like appreciative of the experience.
100%. I mean, any experience of mine, I am so grateful for, because it ultimately shaped me who I am today. Like I am a collection of past events, but my version, who I am, it only exists in this moment. So, yeah, I'm very self-reflective, introspective person. And man, I'm so thankful, like despite all of the kind of bad things I mentioned, that all happened. You're absolutely right. Some people, including myself, just need to go through those events to really learn. And that's just, becoming a more mature person.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Well, and I think
you
that's the being able to take that and move from it and being introspective and not running away from those kind of thoughts are what lead to it. And I feel like
Absolutely.
kind of growing more in like uh in a writing kind of format, you find yourself doing that for like the kind of like the awe and the abyss of the world, you know what I mean? Like kind of just
Yep.
basking in it all and reflecting on it in that sense. And I think that's a good particularly for people who write songs, I think it's a definitely a good exercise for one to do that within themselves. Like even if you're not intentionally doing that, you're kind of working on these observational skills elsewhere, and these kind of like this empathetic and like other skill sets, and looking at things differently than maybe well, I don't want to say, but just in a different way where you can grow from those skills and apply them to yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy because everything, in my opinion, is kind of interconnected like that. You know, I mean, if you have a negative, or if there's negative, the old negative gray cloud, if it's kind of surrounding you, it's probably going to translate in the art or music that you write or create. And maybe it's not even a bad thing, like, like being negative like that. Maybe it's your catharsis to get out of that feeling. So I don't want to, I guess, as I just said it, maybe it's best I don't overlook it too much, because the subjectivity of things and the lack of understanding, for certain pieces of art and music, whatnot, can often be misleading and misjudged. And um, I think it is absolutely just this strange kind of phenomenon that maybe people don't realize.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so to kind of tie it in with songs for an unknown god, during like uh during Oregon times, were you writing some of the tunes for this record, or at least kind of absorbing music similar to this? Because like I listened to it a bunch of times this week, getting ready to chat with you, and like it's an incredible record, and like your voice is like it sticks out. It's so smooth and like so like encapsulating and like in a different way than I've heard you before. And
Thanks,
like
man.
it's beautiful, man. It's a really well done record. It's really well thought out and really well like like written and tonally, like, so like I guess like, and this is just it's like another subset of like of your musicality, but like I feel like just as a with my journey, like I'm always working on something else too, because I'm slightly interested in whatever, how banjo works, fill in the blank, you know what I mean? Like, and you're just kind of, I find myself, I just kind of plunk around with a bunch of different things, and sometimes they eventually evolved to something else. So was like Songs for an Unknown God kind of like that, or was this like just kind of a post Oregon like uh spill out of stuff?
Well, it's definitely so none of the, I mean, I, maybe some of the songs. So I also had this other like this project called Psychic Leader
Okay.
that was like there was like some stuff released in 2017, 2018, and it was like almost like pseudo jazz meets like hip hop based beats, but not. I it probably hip hop is probably not the right nomenclature to address or say what I was trying to do. But I was like inspired by like Childish Gambino,
Okay.
like in kind of like that style music, like with the like kind of cool guitar behind it. And I forget that producer, his name's like Ludwig something. I don't know.
Yeah,
Whatever.
yeah, yeah. He was like,
He's
yeah, yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
He's dope. But yeah, so like some of my songs for an unknown God songs are from that. Trying to think God, what I called them. Hold on. I'm like drawing a blank on my own album right now. Um Geez, it's been a long day, honestly.
I
I'm
feel it.
sorry.
No, you're good. You're
My
good.
wa-
No worries.
my my watch feels funny is like a perfect example of like the cross like of a song that was already existing, you know, that I kind of just revamped to play like more, songs from Oh God acoustic style. But the majority of those songs I had written post Oregon Space Trail of Doom. Post Oregon Space Trail of Doom, I had thought about, you know, doing like producing like lo-fi hip hop beats and stuff like that. And I made like a 3 song, one like 3 minute album called 33. That was like the first songs for an unknown God thing. And it was just like I wanted to do like analog video and attach like a 1 minute instrumental fully composed like over these videos, and it worked, but I realized that like there was nothing I could do live. And like I'm kind of like a purist. Like I don't like playing to backing tracks. Like I don't want to loop things. And I don't care if people do that. Like, it's just not me. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to like, make fun of it or say anything bad, but simply I like organic music, like kind of played the way I guess I do. I don't know. I know a lot of people have like really cool opinions on what I just said, and your opinions are totally valid. This is just my opinion, really.
Yeah.
Um, but I was like, man, like, how can I do this? Like, how can I like write songs and play live? I was like, man, well, I've always like Bob Dylan and like folk stuff like Townes Van Zandt and America and like Richie Havens and Joni Mitchell, Joan Baez, and all those cool singers and songwriters like had always intrigued me, but I never felt that I was like the strongest vocalist. Honestly, I know I'm like adequate, but there are some vocalists out there that are like wow, like showstoppers. I was like a little old lead guitarist, and I could write like songs. I could do my thing. Don't get me wrong, but like what am I gonna do? Like, okay, well, why don't I just do the most simple stuff that I can possibly make? And that translated into acoustic guitar and just a voice. And probably the very first song that broke that barrier for me that I wrote was There's a Storm Coming. And after I wrote that song, it took me like probably a year and a half to write that song, like in 2022 to like 2023 or something. And I was like, man, I just opened up the floodgates to like Pandora's box, like the floodgates, and then I opened the box. So um it was really, really, inspiring. Also at that time, I was like, man, I don't have time to like rehearse or like get a band. I don't have time to like, you know, meet with people. Like I'm just gonna try and do this all myself. And so I kind of used 100 miles as like a beta test to like, hey, can I write more songs by myself? Can I, record them by myself? Like, can I do all these things, And I slowly and surely started, knocking off the miles or, the milestones and just like trudging forward. And eventually I like had a full album and it was like, wow, this is sweet. I did this all myself. Like I kind of like that control, of like not having to like deal with anybody but myself, as hasty as it like as bad as that sounds. I think at that point in my musical journey, I really just wanted that control,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And so it worked out, it could be better, like the album, like it could have been, I could have went to like a studio and, recorded it, but really it was extremely minimalist. And I value that, that ethos for this album. Because it was what I could do on my own. Like I also didn't have the money to like kind of do like all these other things like most bands can do and whatnot. Um, but in doing so, I was able to just continuously stretch my confidence out, as an acoustic singer-songwriter, a vocalist even now, like bit by bit, like, wow, I feel comfortable playing this live. Like people aren't like not paying attention to me, but like like, it's like they're not like completely apathetic towards me, but they're like somewhat listening. They might listen to 3 songs and then go out and smoke a cigarette or something, whatever. Like
Which
that's
it's just
three songs.
in the bar world. That's a win, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
if you're bombing, they'll let you know, and if you're doing fine, they ignore you. You're like, I'm in the ether of, I guess, winning.
yeah, dude. And it's like sweet, okay, like nobody's talking loud, like nobody's like being rude. I'm like, okay, this is fine. This is a milestone. Like I'm happy with that. And eventually, unfortunately, like I mentioned, I did like amidst, the like just like gaining momentum and traction, I did get hit by that car, which kind of set me back. And I
Yeah.
was like, shoot, dude, like I like am
I mean, I
waiting
would
for
be
my
saying way more than shoot, dude. But
oh I was well, my fiance really helped me
yeah.
at that time. And
Which hand was
it
it? Left or right?
it was my left.
Okay, shit.
Um
Yeah.
and I'm honestly, like I was really stoked because with rhythm playing, like I need my right wrist to be a little more flexible, almost like what is it, Gumbo, or like what's the green dude that's like
Um,
elastic and what
Gumby.
Gumby. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So like I want my wrist to be like rubber. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like I can't have tension. Um, and whatever, like the wrist, it did like I did have to get surgery. I got like 11 screws
Oh.
in a plate.
Oh.
I had like 4 months of physical therapy, and my physical therapist like believed in me so much, and my surgeon, his name was Dr. Blaine Bathus at Metro. He was the best. Like he was like, I ride motorcycles. His like family or kids like rode motorcycles and whatnot. And, he was just like, man, like of all the things that happened to you, like, I'm surprised you didn't like break this riding motorcycles or something, like, and we just like kind of like had that similarity. He was really supportive of me. And I guess during the surgery, he saw some other things in there, and he was able to kind of like snip snip and make things all right for me. um but he's pretty renowned as like a hand surgeon specialist like in the greater Cleveland area. And I was just fortunate like enough to like just dumb luck to like get this guy at Metro. But they knew I was a musician. I mean, I let them know.
Yeah.
but but fortunately, I was able to just like prevail. I had a few gigs at the time. One was opening up for Gene Schwartz.
Yeah.
Yeah, we all know him. Glenn Schwartz's brother. And back to Brent Hamker, he actually played my guitar parts for me while I sang. And then I had another gig opening up for this country dude named Austin Stambaugh. He's a friend of
Yes.
mine.
Austin
He's
is.
awesome. You know Austin,
Yeah, I
yeah.
worked with Austin at Guitar. I've known Austin for a very long time. He's
Yeah.
yeah, like honestly, listening to this record, I'm like the perfect bill in my mind would be Andy Cook, you, and Austin Stambaugh. Like that would be a
Oh my
great bill.
gosh, I'm flattered. Thank you for that, Dave. Like that, those are giants. Austin's just gotten so much better, and he was already just so good. I think
Yeah,
he's like overseas now in England or something. But
he's killing it.
I really like. He was touring at the time with my other friend Chris Emmerich, and he's also an Ohio guy. But they were both living in Nashville at the time, and yeah, dude, like they're just really awesome guys. I can't say enough good things about them. But that was in July, and I had somebody else, my buddies John Chips and Nolan Cavano, Nolan from Oregon Space Trail Dune, play guitar for me while I sang. And then I didn't take another gig until August 28th when I was able to finally play the guitar myself.
Yeah.
And the whole accident and everything happened in May. So yeah, I guess it was about 4 months, May, June, July, August. Yeah, 4 months of extreme, just dismay. But you know what? It's neither here nor there, because amidst all that stuff, I got the record out, um, got the thing with Wax Mage, was able to play my gigs. I didn't have to cancel anything.
That's incredible.
Besides, I was playing with a band, Wish Queen, and we were supposed to go to New York City the following week, after I got hit.
That's
And I
right.
had
Yeah.
like 4 gigs down there, including one with Songs for an Unknown God. And I had to bail on all of those. So yeah, I guess I did have to bail on some gigs, but they were able to actually figure it out really quickly, thankfully. I was in the hospital like kind of just like maybe an hour after getting hit. And I had called my friend McKenna, who plays violin for Wish Queen. And I was like, yo, McKenna, like you gotta transmit this message to Grace, the band leader, and just let them know I won't be there. But everything just worked out, Dave. I like seriously, like I don't even regret last year. I mean, I was just riding my bike home from work. I wasn't doing anything flagrant
Yeah.
or nefarious. So it's just an accident. And admittedly, it was a teenager who hit me in a
Oh.
stolen
Oh
vehicle.
my God.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was like he's like a 15-year-old, and he hit me from behind at like 40, and
Jeez.
it really messed me up, dude. But
Yeah.
I just like, like for kids to like be stealing cars and whatnot like that, I definitely forgive the kid. Um, I'm sure that, anybody to kind of like do that stuff probably maybe just doesn't have like the greatest life and or direction on anything. So, I do feel for them, and I understand, I've just come to peace with that whole situation. And oddly enough, dude, I'm like so into bicycle riding now. I like I'm like getting into like racing and like the culture, and I just quit like cigarettes like 2 months ago. And it's just kind of keeping me like it's helping me get over these traumas and then keep me off the cigarettes and all sorts of fun stuff. So life is just amazing.
That's incredible. That's super
Yeah.
inspiring, man. Like, cause like
Yeah.
one just to get over the PT to play again. That's so
Absolutely.
much work and like so much in the head. Can I do what I did before? It's so much of like just those the confident that you build up. You know what I mean? Just
Yeah.
washed out and starting from the beginning. But to come out and like and to see it through and be there for yourself like as much as you've described throughout this situation and like to overcome with forgiveness for this kid that hit you, like that's an incredible journey and like very mature and very like there's a lot within that last sentence to get to that what you just told me. There's like 3 novels of work. You know what I mean? And like
Yeah.
that's super inspiring, man. Like so like I I don't even know how like how more to express how like incredible and happy I am that that's where you are with this. Like
Well, I really appreciate that recognition. I mean, it's like there's like one or two ways like that you can go about these situations. But unfortunately, if you don't take control over like, or at least for me, the way I operate, um, I simply just need to take control, like regain control of my traumas and figure out how to conquer them. And like it's trial and error. And in this particular situation, it was all the things that I listed. And like in terms of like forgiving like the kids and whatnot, that was like honestly like one of the first things because like I just like couldn't sit there and dwell on it. There was nothing I could do. It's not productive to just be like, wow, I'm gonna like blah blah. It's like it's not getting you anywhere. Just face the music, accept it. It happened, and move on. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Um, it is terrifying. Like cars and stuff like still scare me. And like honestly, I see like bad driving etiquette and like people on their phone and stuff like that, and it's just like a really scary and real thing. And like because of our phones and just how distracted I feel that some people are with these it's just like it's so dangerous. And if there's any takeaway from this talk, it's like just don't text and drive, and like just watch the road, obey the traffic, and like don't drive drunk. That's the next thing. It's like the like cars are just so terrible. They're such forces of strength, and you get hit by one and it's just like, oh my gosh. Like I didn't even see the car. I didn't see anything happen. I just rolled off of a hood and that was it. It happened so fast. And I was fortunate to like just make it out alive. Like people don't.
Yeah.
It's a really serious thing. And and yeah, I just would hate to like ever hear that happen to anybody else. Because I just know how traumatic it is.
Yeah. Well, like, and I don't, I hope it doesn't always have to come to something like this to kind of understand that. You know what I mean? Because like as a kid, we were driving the grandmas. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You just get
Yeah.
so in it. You know what I mean? You can't like fathom another thing, and like so like, but it's definitely one of those things. Like I think like, just even knowing because another buddy of mine years ago got hit by a car as well, and like being there for their recovery, and luckily they were all good, and
Good.
just like
Good.
it just so it's one of those things like that like I think and it's just like how you kind of brought up how we're distracted all the time too with phones and like it's just part of this thing that's so normalized we don't think about it, but like
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
but I think yeah so like I'm super happy that you are good. Like and
Thank
like
you.
because like
Thank you.
that's a lot of recovery and like and it brings a lot of awareness and I think like also it brings a lot of like just being able to talk about it with someone and get them to kind of think of it and like not that that's like your goal is to like bring awareness to this but just like through having that what I mean like and having that experience and being able to like grow out of it and come out of it. Did you find yourself on a side note like as far as playing wise, did you find yourself like stronger in a sense with certain things?
Yeah. I mean, like okay, like I initially did at first, and I often kind of tell people,
Mhm.
like, yeah, it's like, but every now and then I will notice like a finger or so, like will kind of cave in on me, like say I'm using a lot of strength. Although, like, again, I haven't been playing too much lead guitar.
Yeah.
Um, and on a rainy day, like,
Oh, yeah.
it will hurt.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
But like, dude, again, like I'm so determined to like not let it affect me that if that I just push through, and it's like I'm fine. I'm really okay. I really am. But if people really wanted an in-depth answer, I would be honest. I'd be like, well, some days it's like this, like yada yada yada. But I have yet for it to really, really, become a problem. And I hope that it doesn't become a problem. But no, I mean, like, I just, I still feel as strong as ever, honestly, most of the time.
Because I mean, and honestly, if, from our conversation, like, and just from if anything did become a problem, I'm confident you would find your way through it. Like to because just to get to where you are right now from that, like how you described taking the control of it, but also just like not giving up on yourself in that sense is
Absolutely. Yeah.
that's a lot of determination, man.
You,
It's very inspiring.
it's all anybody has. It's like, do you love playing music? Do you love doing this? Do you love where's your passion at? You'll do anything to just be able to fulfill that. And I think it was really easy for me, and I think that if somebody was in the same situation, it'd be easy for them too, back to it's just like, yeah, it's like, yeah, it's a really heady concept, but maybe how determined. I mean, it takes kind of a quirky, idiosyncratic, determined person to even like pursue music
Yeah,
to begin with.
yeah.
You're vulnerable all the time. Like you have to have a thick skin. You have to like spend hours like by yourself, like rejecting plans proposed
Rejecting
by other.
yourself, just being
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
I biff
exactly.
that.
Yeah,
No one's
being
here
honest
telling
with
you
yourself.
that, just you.
Right, right, right. But you know what? It's like goals like that are fulfilled through like hard work and determination are often the most fulfilling. So, or at least in my opinion. So, like, yeah, it was hard and everything, music in general, but man, it's so worth it. It's so worth it. And again, to just still have that agency, like, amongst my peers as like a musician and a colleague and a friend. And yeah, yeah, it's like I'm so confident that anybody could do something like that. It's not even funny.
I definitely like. I find myself in similar, like at least a similar line of thought with that statement when I think of like when someone's like, "Oh, what a gift." I'm like, well, it's. I don't know if it's a gift. It's like I put myself in a against the wall with a click for like 4 days, and like,
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, you
exactly.
could figure
Right.
this out too. You know what I mean? And like, it's definitely a thing I
Yeah.
tell my kids. Like, how do you do that? I'm showing you exactly what to do, and just do it slow, man. So I definitely, what I mean, I definitely agree. It's like it's one of those things that you can do, and I also do think it's one of those things you got to see through though. So I think sometimes that's even more of the feat is the mentally being like it's worth it to sit in front of this wall and bash my head against it against this
Absolutely.
metaphorical wall
Yeah.
of
Right.
A minor or whatever. I don't know the
Uh-huh.
upper
Oh
extensions,
yeah.
whatever. Fill
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
blank.
Right,
Um,
right. Tritone sub and
yeah,
secondary dominant to
just
the,
to the G flat train to
yeah,
B
you're right.
to A town. Like I like
Exactly. Yeah.
um But like one thing, okay, one thing I wanted to ask about in I guess that kind of determination, like so you worked on there's a storm coming uh for like a year to make that one work. Was that like the process of that writing and getting that out? Was that like what took a year? Was it just trying to find how to craft the narrative? Was it trying to find how
Yeah,
to craft
yeah.
the was it that part of it?
100%. Yeah,
Okay.
crafting the narrative and like it's kind of like, it's like the theme and everything like it's not immediately apparent, or like it's kind of like metaphorical and like symbolic of like some other things. So it's like kind of maybe ambiguous in some parts, but um yeah, I just like, I often have like kind of this goofy ambiguous style writing that people like either understand or like just don't at all. There's a storm coming, like honestly, like it kind of gets a little political in terms of like war and like like countries invading each other and stuff like that, particularly like neighboring countries and whatnot. Um, but it was like it's like kind of a song of hope too. Um, and I think that it took me a while to kind of like make it that way, and it came in the form of that ending verse with the rose coming out of the ground, and like just like, man, like I'm here in this like hellhole, but like just there's somewhere, like somewhere else there's like, you know, um something really beautiful, and like, I can dream or I can think and just pretend I'm there, but either or, just the act of like that thought is kind of like just inspiring, or at least like, just hang in there, type mentality. um and I guess it took me a while. Sometimes I'll like attribute meaning like after I write a song.
Mhm.
Like, say if I'm like so like out there or heady with my writing, like I like just the way that these words kind of flow with each other, and then later I'm like, okay, yeah, I can see that can make sense. Like, or like maybe I'll change a word or something like, oh, if I do that, it'll totally be apparent, whatever. But when there's a storm a coming, like entirely it dealt with just how can I wrap this song up to where it cohesively somewhat makes sense,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Um, but
Okay.
even
No.
now, I still don't think it makes that much sense.
But
you
it's,
know,
I think you only grow from that point onward, I think, as a songwriter. Because I remember hanging out with
absolutely.
Austin, and Austin being like, yeah, no good songs start with I, have the word I in it. I'm like, what? Like, Austin, I've heard you sing I before. Like,
Yeah,
but like,
yeah,
but just
yeah.
even thinking along that, right?
Absolutely.
I just trying to craft a narrative, and like I find more ambiguity in my own work until like more recently, where I'm trying to like make that structure, but also have like still some of that ambiguity in it. And like, I don't know, listening to it, I found it really interesting that that's a song that took you that long of a time to like kind of, but it sounds like it almost was like a craft like opener, like as far as like or a
Yeah,
structure opener for you.
it was like kind of my first entry into like this style, like kind of like folk country. I mean, I'd always like, I don't get me wrong, like it wasn't the first time I guess I had written like a folk song or something like that. Um, but something where like I like kind of took it a little more seriously, and I was like, wow, like this is maybe something I want to pursue. This is something I can grow with, like I can age into. This is something that, like it's not like a trend, it's like kind of like tried and true, like it's always been there, and I genuinely like it. It's like I don't feel like I have to try or like pretend to be like this like archetype of like this person in some like scene or whatever. Not that like you're always pretending, but like, the in-group out-group mentality is certainly something that exists in the subconscious mind, and in social environments, and particularly like genres of music and whatnot, obviously kind of what we're talking about. But um yeah, I mean, it's just it's easygoing music. My grandma could like it, and then somebody in high school could like it,
Yeah, yeah.
you know
And well, and it's one of those things like where it's like almost like to land the solo lick of the song. You know what I mean? Is almost like it, it's gotta right because there's so many right and wrong ways, but I shouldn't say wrong ways. There's so many right ways to approach it, and so many
yeah,
different perspectives, right? And like
absolutely.
it's one of those things I think you can use C, F, and G forever, and completely like
Reinvent the song.
reinvent well but the exactly yeah reinvent the song and find different ways to say it and different ways to land it and different ways to make whatever you put on top of that the most like interesting thing to be said at that moment like like
Absolutely, absolutely.
wow man and like I found one thing too like that I found really interesting with this record is like and after hearing you talk about it is like it all sounds very congruent so doing this all
Thank
on your own
you.
like musically thematically and just like production wise it doesn't sound like how you like it doesn't sound like multiple sessions it sounds like all one fluidity like it sounds like all one vibe of what you were going for and I think you really captured that by that.
Thanks, Dave. I really appreciate that. I mean, I tried my hardest, and um that fluidity of like the first song to the last song kind of idea. And there are same things like obviously I wish I could have done differently on it, but I also had like a big support system with that album and a lot of people helping me. John Chips mixed the album, Akron Recording Company mastered it. I
Nice.
had my friend McKenna Glorioso on the violin. Um, and my friend Jess Sycon also sang harmonies, and John Chips actually sang harmonies as well. But that's pretty much the entire personnel of that album, aside from me. And I play like most all the instruments aside from the violin, and yeah, it was just like but listening to some of the vocals and whatnot, like, so something I should say, I did start taking lessons from Naomi Columna,
Okay.
vocal lessons. And she's just like this amazing, classically trained vocal. I mean, she is so freaking awesome. And when I broke my wrist and I couldn't play guitar, I was like, okay, well, now it's time to get back. I need to do something here. So I'm going to take voice lessons. And she really, I took like 4 or 5 lessons from her. And I just like, I learned to project more, breathe better, how to hold in my air, and all sorts of cool things that I didn't know prior to going into that first album, 100 Miles. And I wish, like, maybe I could have employed some of those techniques that she had taught me. But I do have some tracks coming out pretty soon.
Sick.
And hopefully, maybe, folks will recognize the new and improved voice.
It's
But
it's just like playing, right? You learn a couple new licks in the sense of like being able,
yep,
and it's what's interesting about vocals. It's all like it's all that breath control. Like, and it's one of those things
yep,
you hear people say, and you kind of like, okay, yeah, yeah, but I gotta think about the note. You know what I mean? Like, at least I should say I do. And like,
absolutely, I do. Yeah,
yeah, you know what I mean? Like, 'cause it's one of those things that's so like personal and can be, your voice is, I don't know, and you're like, oh God,
yeah,
like,
no, no,
you know,
it's like don't pick me.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. But
yeah,
that's awesome. I think, and the only way to get better at that is to do that, is to track it and hear and be like, well, did I kind of keep my mouth in a weird shape that made my soft palate not project as my true tone as I could have?
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
But shit, you don't learn that stuff until you do it. So that's exciting,
exactly.
man.
It was exciting. And I'm like, man, probably like yourself, I am a student. I'm an eternal student for life. I will never be complacent with my talents. I will never be like, I'm perfect or I'm good enough. Like, it's just kind of just like my mentality to constantly get better at everything I do and to never plateau and keep myself interested, along the way. Um, never know what the future will bring, but I hope that we don't like give up on that notion of self exploration.
I don't. I think like being this far into it, my friend. I don't think we will.
No, amen to that, brother.
Well, Ryan, hey
But
man, the record's awesome. I'm excited for the
thank
new
you.
tracks. The wax what wax why can't I
Wax Mage.
one more time?
Wax Mage.
Wax Maish release is going to be Friday. That's this Friday, but by the time this comes out, it'll be already out.
Yeah,
And that can be
yeah.
found on their website, right?
That is correct.
Okay,
I will have records to sell at
at the
shows
show.
and whatnot.
Sweet.
I am really pushing for all online sales to use them as a conduit because I want Wax Mage like to be like satisfied with doing all this stuff for me. And I want them to make, what they need to make first, before I even think about that. I mean, like it's just so amazing everything they've done for me, and I can't believe the value of like it's just uncanny. I'm so grateful for them. But
And the,
yes,
the vinyls themselves look super sick. Like the ones you've been
oh
sharing. I'm
yeah,
like, oh my God, these are so rad.
thanks,
Like,
man. Thank you.
but okay, so that'll be on their site, and maybe some will be floating around June 13th.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah,
I
all right,
promise you. Yeah. 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 You know what? Let it be known that there will be some at this show that we
very
get to
good.
be on. And Yeah, Dave, thanks again for thinking of me. I mean, when I learned about the dude from Dispatch and you guys kind of partnering up, it's so cool, and I appreciate that you thought of me to be on the bill, and I'm really looking forward to it. I love Shane from the Winchester, who owns the Winchester. I love the Winchester. I love that it's there, and so yeah, I can't thank you enough for putting all this together.
Yo, Spike Spiegel here. You just listened to Zig at the Gig podcast. Keep riding the bebop. See you, Space Cowboy. Bang.